guys, welcome to my channel. I am wanting to just have today's video be about what is gastroparesis. So when I was going through my whole diagnosis, like trying to figure out what was going on with me, I went online. I definitely did my own research and I searched and searched. And I'm not saying like, oh, only watch YouTube videos of people with like certain conditions, I'm saying do your own research and watch some videos of like people of what they're experiencing. So this video is kind of like, what is gastroparesis? Like, what is the overview? What are symptoms and stuff like that? And like management, what are causes of it? Because I feel like a lot of people don't know, you know? And so I'm really wanting to just be able to educate, especially because I feel like there's not many people out there who are able to educate. And I feel like when it comes to the education on videos from chronic illness community people, they tend to be medical professionals and their explanation tends to be very complicated and very, I feel, difficult to understand if you're not used to like medical terminology and stuff. So that's where I want to come in and be able to give that explanation. So let's get started. So gastroparesis, the overview of gastroparesis is a condition in which the muscles in the stomach don't move food as they should for it to be digested. Most often, muscles contract to send food through the digestive tract, but with gastroparesis, the stomach's movement and aka motility, is too slow or doesn't work at all. This keeps the stomach from emptying correctly and well enough. Often the cause of gastroparesis is not known. Sometimes it is linked to diabetes, and some people get gastroparesis after surgery or a viral illness, or sometimes if you have a restricting eating disorder, it can also cause that because your stomach is not used to having to digest that food. So symptoms of gastroparesis include nausea, vomiting, bloating in the stomach, stomach pain, feeling full after eating just a few bites and long after eating a meal, vomiting undigested food even a few hours earlier, acid reflux, changes in blood sugars, not wanting to eat, weight loss, and not getting enough nutrients called malnutrition. Many people with gastroparesis also might not notice symptoms and then they could pop up one day. So in my case, my symptoms were severe nausea, vomiting, I was dropping weight like crazy. I was feeling super full after a few bites, so I wasn't wanting to eat past that because then it was making the pain worse. And so that's kind of what led into me going and looking to get a diagnosis of what is going on, like what can I do, you know? So those are some symptoms. Causes are not always clear on what could be leading to gastroparesis. Sometimes it's, like I said, sometimes it's diabetes, sometimes it's from a viral infection or illness, sometimes it's genetics, sometimes it can be damage to the nerve that controls the stomach muscles. That nerve is called the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve helps manage what happens in the digestive tract, and it tells the stomach to contract and to push food into the small intestine. If the vagus nerve is damaged, it can't send signals to the stomach muscles as it should be. So then that makes the food sit in the stomach for much longer than it's supposed to be. And so sometimes when you have surgery, damage to the vagus nerve can happen. It's typically abdominal surgery that causes issues to the vagus nerve, but it can be seen with other things. Some factors that raise the risk of getting gastroparesis include diabetes, surgery on the stomach area or a tube that connects to the throat to the stomach called the esophagus, infection with a virus, certain cancers and cancer treatments such as radiation therapy to the chest or stomach, certain medicines that slow the rate of stomach emptying, such as opioid pain medicines, a condition that causes the skin to harden and tighten called scleroderma. I am not good with pronouncing things. I am dyslexic. So it's spelled SCLERODERMA. Nervous system diseases such as migraine, Parkinson's disease, or multiple sclerosis. Underactive thyroid, also called hypothyroidism, along with also Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, as it's a connective tissue disorder and your stomach is made of connective tissue. People assigned female at birth are more likely to get gastroparesis than people assigned male at birth. That does not mean that men do not get gastroparesis. It is just more commonly found in women than it is in men. Gastroparesis can also cause several complications if untreated, such as loss of body fluids, so dehydration from repeated vomiting, malnutrition. Not wanting to eat can make you so you don't get enough calories in for the day, or your body is not taking in those nutrients due to the vomiting, or you might have a malabsorption disorder along with gastroparesis. Food that doesn't digest, that hardens and stays in the stomach. This food can harden into a solid mass called a bezoar. Bezoars can cause nausea and vomiting, and they may be life-threatening if they keep food from passing into the small intestine. Blood sugar changes. Gastroparesis doesn't cause diabetes, but the changes in the rate and amount of food passing into the small bowel can cause sudden changes in blood sugar levels. So I have something called reactive hypoglycemia. So because I don't digest food very well and I don't absorb very well, I tend to have a lower blood sugar. So I am constantly craving that sugary, sweeter stuff, which is ironic because I'm supposed to drink a ton of water, but water drops blood sugar. And so water drops my blood sugar way too low. And then lower quality of life symptoms can make it hard to keep up with and just keep daily tasks. So when I was going through getting diagnosed, I was exhausted 24/7. I had no energy to do anything. And I was like, I felt very just down in the dumps, really. Diagnosis. So there's several types of tests that can help diagnose gastroparesis and rule out other conditions that may cause symptoms similar to gastroparesis. These tests include a gastric emptying test. This test is to see how fast your stomach empties. So a gastric emptying study is when you eat a radioactive egg sandwich or oatmeal or something. I think it's kind of different based off how old you are and stuff like that. So I had two gastric emptying studies. The first one I had was at Children's Hospital, closer to the beginning of my diagnosis process, and I had oatmeal. I ate half of the oatmeal, and they said that my test was normal, but I had only eaten half the oatmeal, and oatmeal is something that's easier for my body to digest. So then I got a referral to get a gastric emptying study done at UC Health, an adult hospital, and I had it done with an egg and toast sandwich, and that showed abnormalities and stuff like that. So you get 10 minutes to eat, and then it's like a picture of your stomach right after you eat, 15 minutes after you eat, half an hour after you eat, another half hour, and then after that it's every hour for 4 hours, or up until you have passed it through like your body and stuff. And so depending on how quickly you digest is how quickly that moves through your system is how they determine like, okay, you have delayed gastric emptying, you don't have delayed gastric emptying, stuff like that. They also have something called like a breath test. For breath tests, you consume a solid or liquid food that has a substance that your body absorbs. In time, this substance shows up in your breath. Your healthcare team collects samples of your breath over a few hours to measure the amount of the substance in your breath. The amount of substance in your breath shows how fast your stomach empties. So I guess that's another type of gastric emptying test, and then there's an upper GI endoscopy. So I had an upper endoscopy, and this is where they stick this camera down your throat. Hopefully you're asleep. I was asleep for mine. This small tube that has a camera on it, and they stick it down into the stomach through the esophagus, and then the beginning part of the small intestine called the duodenum. Then it uses the camera to look around, and then it also typically you take biopsies. So, and then ultrasound. I had an ultrasound, but it didn't show anything, but it was like super quick. So, and then there's another thing called a smart pill. I did not have a smart pill. If you want to learn more about the smart pill, you can actually go watch, her name is Kenna Kay. If you watch her gastroparesis story, she talks about the smart pill because she actually did the smart pill test. And she does a really great job explaining all of that. So if you want to learn more about that, I think she's a great resource to go and watch and learn about that. So then we get to treatment. Treatment of gastroparesis begins with finding and treating the condition that's causing it, if that is like able to be found. So if diabetes is causing your gastroparesis, your healthcare professional will work with you to help control those blood sugar levels in hopes that it'll help. Another thing you can do is changing your diet. Getting enough calories and nutrition while improving symptoms is definitely the main goal in treatment of gastroparesis. Many people can manage gastroparesis with dietary changes. I feel like it's a very big misconception that everybody with gastroparesis has to have a feeding tube, which is not true at all. It very well can be fixed. I don't want to say fixed, but it can be managed with dietary changes. So a dietitian might suggest eating smaller meals more frequently throughout the day, chewing your food very well, eating well-cooked fruits and vegetables rather than raw fruits and vegetables, avoiding fruits and veggies with lots of fiber such as oranges, broccoli, as those can harden in your stomach into a solid mass. Choose mostly low-fat food, and if eating fat doesn't bother you, add small servings of fatty foods to your diet. Eat soups and pureed foods if liquids are easier for you to swallow. Drink about 34 to 51 ounces, that's 1 to 1.5 liters of water a day. Exercise gently, such as by taking a walk after you eat. They suggest you don't lay down after you eat, as that can cause issues in digestion along with stomach problems, and then also reflux. Take a multivitamin daily. Don't eat and drink at the same time. Space them out by about an hour. They also suggest that you avoid high fibrous foods, as fiber is very difficult for people with gastroparesis to digest, and it tends to cause very bad stomach issues, like stomach pain. If just dietary changes doesn't help, sometimes they give you medications. So there are medications to help the stomach muscles work. There are many different kinds. I've been on several different ones. I've been on erythromycin, Reglan, a bunch of other ones that honestly I don't really remember. A lot of people end up with Motegrity. Unfortunately, Motegrity is, I don't know if it's FDA approved just yet in the US. I know it is in Canada and Mexico and stuff like that, but I'm not quite sure if it is here in the United States. I'm currently on Reglan, but it is a black box labeled medication because it can start to mimic the symptoms of Parkinson's. So I have to be very careful. And then sometimes they'll also give medicines to control nausea and vomiting, such as Zofran, promethazine, stuff like that, to help prevent nausea and vomiting so that you can eat more. There are also some other surgical treatment options. There are feeding tubes. There are several different types of feeding tubes. I will do a whole other video on the different types of feeding tubes because there are quite a lot, and I do have pretty good experience with a lot of them. Honestly, almost all of them. So another type of surgery that they can do is called a gastric stimulator. And that pretty much, it's literally like a pacemaker, but in your stomach to, on your, tell your vagus nerve, okay, send this, start to digest, let's digest, stuff like that. It's really cool. But I think that there's only like a certain amount of people that fall under like that as an option. I feel like doctors don't typically go to that first. So feeding tubes, there's also there's surgical, so there's nasal feeding tubes, surgical feeding tubes, and then there's something called intravenous feeding tube, which is a central line. There are several different types of central lines. There's a PICC line, which is here in the main artery here. There's also something called a midline that goes here, but it's not as long-term as a PICC line. Then there's something called a Hickman, which is typically here in your chest. And then people who have long-term with that and don't want to have to keep getting Hickmans or ports, or not ports, PICCs, they get something called a port. So that's really cool. And then that's if they can't do like a nasal feeding tube or a surgical feeding tube, then they will sometimes do a PICC line, or if you're not tolerating the feeds into your feeding tube, they'll do a PICC line or Hickman and stuff like that. So that's, oh my gosh, brain is not working. That is kind of like the overview of it. I have to say, when I was learning and I was going to my appointments and I was like, okay, this is what I think I have, I found it very helpful to note all of my symptoms, note everything I have been doing to try and manage my symptoms, because I feel like a lot of doctors are like, you don't want to have to, oh my gosh, I'm having a difficult time with braining. You don't want to do what we're suggesting, this or that. And I found a very difficult time with being told it was a brain-gut pathway issue and being told that there was nothing physically wrong with me and that it was just mentally. So finding all that you can that supports what you believe. I mean, we know our bodies better than anybody else. Don't let anybody tell you that they know your body better than you do, because you know what feels right and what feels wrong. You know when something is wrong with your own body. And I definitely wish I had been more stern in how I felt and the symptoms I was experiencing and why I felt like I had gastroparesis, because I feel like I would have gotten diagnosed so much sooner. And I still to this day get very upset that I didn't fight that so much more. But now I want to share that, and I want to say, hey, if you think this is what is going on with you, fight for those answers. Ask for those tests. Like, it's the worst that's going to happen is they say no. And at that point, if you genuinely think that this might be going on, show why. Bring evidence, And maybe you even need to just go to another doctor. I know people are scared about doctor shopping, like doctors thinking you're doctor shopping and looking for a doctor who will just diagnose you with anything. But if a doctor's not listening to your concerns, you genuinely need a different doctor. Like, that is not okay. Like, that is negligence. If they're not listening to you and your concerns and they are just continuously telling you, this is what you have, this is what you have, this is what you have, but they're not willing to do the tests to truly confirm that. I had to fight to get my first gastric emptying study. Like, fight. I was like, I genuinely think I have to like gastric emptying. Can we please do this? And finally, I was able to get my doctor to agree to it. And so it's all worth it to fight that and to truly get those tests, because that's the only way you're gonna know if you do have that or if you don't have that. And if you get a gastric emptying study and it comes back as pretty much normal, I was still diagnosed with gastroparesis because I am consistent with gastroparesis. Everything I have is consistent with gastroparesis. And who knows, maybe that was a better day for me. Who knows if my body just decided it was going to digest a lot easier that day. With chronic illness is so unpredictable. It's never the same every day, ever. And so don't be defeated when those things happen. Use it as motivation. That's what I always did, and that's what I had to do, is I had to use it as motivation. So I want to be able to help you guys and show that to you guys. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was educational. If you have any questions, comment down below and I will be sure to answer them. Make sure to hit the notification bell to get notified every time I post, and subscribe so you don't lose my channel. Love you guys. Bye.
I got some color back. She thinks so too.